So good day, everyone. Welcome to Angeles Investors Pitch Night, the first one of 2023, sponsored by Greenberg Traurig and PNC. My name is Marcelo De Santis, ThoughtWorks Chief Digital Officer and proud board member of Angeles Investors. I will be your MC today. Super happy to be here, but also I'm extremely proud of seeing how our vision in Angeles Investors of finding, funding, and growing the most promising Hispanic startups is alive, is growing. And I want to say thanks. Thanks to our members, thanks to our sponsors, thanks to our teams, and thanks to each and all of you to make it happen. So having said that, we have a very intense agenda for today. I know you are still enjoying your lunch. Keep doing that. But I'm going to be introducing one of our hosts and speakers for today. It's my pleasure to introduce Nanette Aguirre. Nanette is corporate partner of Greenberg Traurig and, please come here, don't go away, and board member of Angeles Investors. Welcome, Nanette, and thanks for having us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on a Friday afternoon in beautiful Miami. As mentioned, I am a board member of Angeles Investors, and I am also a corporate partner with international and full-service law firm Greenberg Traurig. Greenberg Traurig has well over 2,500 attorneys. We operate across 44 offices around the world. But what I'm most happy about, what I'm proudest of, is our commitment to diversity. Hands down, year after year, we continue to rank #1 for the highest number of African American and Latino attorneys across the board. And it is in that spirit that we collectively put together today's program. And so thank you all for joining us. So before we get started, it's important to note that today's program is for information purposes only. We are not endorsing any particular investment strategy or company, okay? I'd like to invite our first speaker. I'm going to say a few words about him first. There are few moments that we have in our lives, professionally and personally, where we come across someone that truly inspires us, that reminds us what this is all about, that merges passion with purpose. That's who I'm talking about today. He is excellence and leadership personified. He came to this country at the young age of 13, left Cuba to start a new life with his family here in the US. And he became a lawyer, not just became a lawyer, became a very successful corporate and securities lawyer over the span of a 25+ year career. During his 13 years as CEO of this law firm, Greenberg Traurig, under his leadership, the firm went from 325 lawyers in 8 offices to over 1,800 lawyers across 40 offices in 13 years, my friends. Today, he is the senior chairman of Greenberg Traurig, but to me, he is a mentor and a friend. I welcome Mr. Cesar Alvarez.
I think you can hear me, right? Yeah. You can get more friendly when being behind my people again on my hours. And 2 things. Number one, on behalf of my partner and myself and our firm, would like to welcome you to our firm. Well, I also like to welcome you to Miami. We spent a little time in Miami to see what the buzz is all about. always happen. You know, I started here 50 years ago. I've been with Greenberg for 50 years. And when she was talking about diversity, I was the diversity program. That was it that time. And probably a pretty successful diversity program because I went from a little associate to being the CEO of the firm. You know, that's how you want those associates. That's how you want your programs to go. But I want to talk to you a little bit of Miami and maybe give you a flavor as to what has happened here very briefly, so you get a sense, because I travel a lot. I've been to a lot of places. I have been very involved with the Hispanic issues all my life, so I know them well. I don't think that there is a more exciting place to be if you're Hispanic than here in Miami at the time. And we want to duplicate that and replicate that in other places, because it happened here and it can happen in other places. Now, we have some unique history that is happening here. So many people ask, you know, what happened in Miami? How did it all happen? This has been going on for a while, you know. But here's give you a little theory as to how this happened at the end of the day. And I'm gonna have to regress a little bit and spend 3 or 4 minutes in Cuban history, because that's where it starts. There you go. We have a couple of Cubans. Cubans are very shy, as you know. So here's the story. James Michener, who is a great author who's written 40 major books and won a Pulitzer Award and I won many, many additional awards, and is known for his very precise research. He came and lived in Miami for 4 years, and he was at the University of Miami beginning in 1986 for 4 years. And he was researching a book called The Caribbean. So he researched the whole history of the Caribbean before the Spaniards, before everybody else. And during the time he was there, he became fascinated with the Cubans, because the Cubans were an immigrant group, but they were very conservative and they were very business oriented. And he said, that doesn't make any sense. That's not what normally happens. So during his research that he was doing of the Caribbean, he came up with a theory. He wrote a book called 6 Days in Havana, in which he laid out the theory. And his theory was that as he was researching the Caribbean, he know this was in the 1800s. That was during the period that the Spanish colonies began to gain their independence. And Cuba was the last Spanish colony to gain its independence in 1897. And Cubans didn't get Cuba until 1902. And Havana was the entry point and the exit point to the New World. So if you wanted to go to Mexico, you would go from Spain, you would go to Havana, Veracruz. Or you would go to Colombia, you go to Cartagena, La Habana, Cartagena, and vice versa. You would go right through Havana. So all this was going right through Havana. So in the 1800s, as the Spanish colonies began to gain their independence, and they did, every time that they gained the independence of one of their colonies, there were two groups of people who needed to leave because they were no longer welcome there. Number one, the political class, they just lost a revolution, they got to move. And second is the business class, because the business class are generally very closely associated with the political class. So where do they go? They go to Havana. They go to Havana. They go to Havana. They go to Havana. And that becomes an aggregation of those folks who are conservative by nature. They just lost a revolution in the political class, and they're business oriented. So you get this accumulation going on there. And so now move forward to the early 1900s until 1959, the Cuban Revolution. And who comes here to Miami? The top of that group. And they tend to be pretty conservative, and they tend to be pretty business oriented. So that's the first step. So that's what Cuba, Havana did in the 1900s, who's consolidate that, and that's how we land here. So it's a very unusual group of refugees because of this factor. But now let's talk about what's happening today. I'll just give you that because remember, Havana consolidated all of that. Guess what Miami is today? Miami is Havana of the 1900s. We are consolidating the same countries several decades later, but we're consolidating now. So if you look at Miami, every Latin American country sends their people here. And by the way, these are people who are very educated. Many of them have resources, have money. The Cubans came here with zero money. These folks are coming with resources. They saw what happened in Cuba. So as the political instability occurs in Latin America, where do they put their money? Take it to Miami. They take it to Miami. So this is what's happening to Miami. So before the pandemic, that was what's going on in Miami and going pretty rapidly and going very, very well. So that is great for Hispanics because Hispanics here have every position that you would ever want to, that no one has to worry about being discriminated against, et cetera. We have access to political, we have access to economic issues. We have all of that. So that's exactly what is happening right now. And this was already overheated. And now you bring in the folks from New York, the folks from New Jersey, the folks from California, those folks coming in here, and it's an explosion. What has happened here to the real estate market, et cetera, is beyond. It may be too much. But this creates the excitement for Miami. And so over this period of time, this is the only city that I know in the United States, which is a sort of a perfect bell-shaped curve for Hispanics. We have very poor Hispanics. We have very rich Hispanics. We have very well-educated Hispanics. We have very poorly educated Hispanics, and we have everything in between. You don't find that in every American city. And people from Miami make the mistake of assuming that what happens in Miami happens in other cities. I travel enough to know that's not the case. You know, when I go to Iowa, that's not exactly the same feeling that you get in Miami. And so if you stay in this bubble too long, you don't realize what's happening to Hispanics, et cetera, when we have. So I think it's an exciting time, an exciting place to be, et cetera. So I just want to give you that little brief history just so you get a sense of what's going on here, number one. The other thing that I wanted to tell you, because you guys are really focusing on my most important issue, which is Hispanics and how do we move forward. And the news there is not very good. We're not playing at our weight. We're really playing way below our weight. If you look at the percentage of the population that we represent, and you see in any category that you want, let's take, for example, one that you would know, directors of public companies. In 2021, directors of public companies, if I remember, if you look at the African Americans, of all the new directors that are appointed in this S&P
500. 33% were African Americans. 7% were Hispanic. If you look at the number, not just the newly appointed, if you look at the total number of directors in S&P 500, African Americans had 11%. Remember, they're 13% of the population. We had 5%. I remember we're close to 20% of the population. That's what I'm saying. We're not playing our weight. We don't, and by the way, this is not a critical comment at all, African American. It's really a call to us to be more like them and to push ourselves to do things that they're doing and we're not doing. They coalesce when there's any issue for African Americans. It becomes their issue. For us, we're much more divided. Now, that's a Cuban issue. This one is a Puerto Rican issue. This one is that issue and that issue. And unfortunately, we're in a highly capitalistic system, and people understand that, and they play us for that. And we have so much more that brings us together, so much more that we have to fight. You know, I can tell you the African Americans, much smarter than we were about this. They sought me out to help in the African American thing because we could do more being together. But we're not doing this within our own group. Within our own group. And we will be a lot stronger and we'll accomplish a lot more things, et cetera. And this is critical. The further behind we get, the worse it is. We have an incredible shining example of what can happen here in Miami, but this can be duplicated, but we got to work together. We have so much more in common, and we just have to get past that. I was just telling him that, telling somebody that I started this issue of understanding how we do not necessarily get together. Many years ago, you all remember La Raza, the organization. Very good organization. They changed their name. I don't know what the latest name is. But if you talk to a Cuban about La Raza, they were communists. Yeah. Because, you know, they were communists. Everybody knows that. So I didn't quite believe they were communists, you know. And so I was a director of the Knight Foundation, and we were big supporters of La Raza. And I said, I'd like to go on their board. I like to get to know them before you criticize them. It turned out to be a most wonderful group of people, very even-handed, really try to get all the communities involved, et cetera. But I'm sure that little personal experience I had is duplicated many, many, many times over in the Hispanic community. That we develop maybe some prejudice or something, another Hispanic group, but we don't do anything to see if it's true or not. My feeling is we have so much more in common that we should do. So in any event, I've taken enough of your time. I want to thank you for being here and to tell you that if there's anything I can ever do for you, please let us know. Please enjoy the facilities, enjoy everything that we have here. If you need anything, we got people here that will be able to help you out. Thank you very much. Enjoy your retreat. Bye-bye.